Hello everyone, Mr. Oxford here. I'm here to talk about a book, or in particular in this case an author, that's quite special to me, I think. And I find this really difficult, so I spent a lot of time thinking about this because I find reading to be a really personal thing. I think very much like music. It's something that different books, like different music artists, people that you would engage with personally, and someone you have a lot in common with, or someone that you really get on with, might find just to be completely emotionally dead ground. So I gave this a lot of thought, and I thought about why do I normally read, and I normally read for escapism. I find that I'm a pretty cheerful bloke, but I get stressed out by things, and I find I can get a level of escapism from whatever's going on in the world from books way beyond anything I can achieve from television or films or anything. So that's my normal primary reason for reading. And because of that, the kinds of things I like to read things that are different to the normal world. I like to read fantasy books in particular. I like to read really dark fantasy books, huge epic ones, not because necessarily the scale is something that I think my brain needs, but because I hate starting new books. So I like to read things which are really thick books, ideally in sets of about 10 or 15, so I never have to keep starting a new story all the time. I can just pick the thing up and be away somewhere really different and somewhere really huge and somewhere really dark, so it feels important and it takes my mind there and allows me to really have to focus on it. So with that in mind, it was a real surprise to me that the book that I came back to most fondly is really different to that, and the author has a really different style to that. It's very much different to what I would normally read. But you can see the state of the book on the side here. This book's been with me for, I would say, just over 30 years. I'm a guy that takes care of my books. This has been everywhere with me as part of a set of several others by the same artist. It's a part of a set now. This is the first in a series. The series has run on for a few, but they're all individual stories. They're all quite small. They're all about 200 pages long, maybe. And they cover all kinds of subjects from returning popes to time-travelling sprouts to alien invasion. And generally, they're an odd set of books, but very light-hearted. In this particular instance, we're looking at the first book because it's the first one I ever read. Is it the best one? Probably not, but it holds a place in my heart for being the first one that I came to from this series and from this author. And the cast in this story are a bit like Last of the Summer Wine. Now, for many of you, that may be a reference that you don't get. This is a kind of TV programme my parents would have watched. But a bunch of cheeky, naughty, kind of much older people in the latter part of their lives getting themselves into mischief and trouble. And each of these characters has their own kind of eccentricities. One of them, for example, during the stories is digging a massive hole to the centre of the earth underneath his shed. Another is planting magic beans in his allotment. There's another who's made himself a special suit so he can wade across the English Channel. There's another who has a sentient bicycle that hates him. So they're all very kind of have their own stories going on, which in their own way are a bit odd. And they're kind of bumbling their way through life in a place called Brentford, which is like a suburb of London. And they kind of have their own stories together, but they're gradually coming together in the same location across all the books, which is the local pub, the Flying Swan. And these kind of characters are set up as ridiculous as possible in their own ways, but gradually as the story progresses, they tend to turn much more kind of Lovecraftian horror. They have some kind of bounty gradually seeps its way in. They even have like an occult professor who'll gradually feed them clues, and this kind of ridiculous band of old people are gradually turning their hand to fighting the forces of darkness and stuff in their local borough. How does this read? What kind of writing style is this? I think is best illustrated by just looking at what the author looks like. It reads exactly the way you would imagine this person would write. It's like having some mad old drunk uncle who loves telling lies when he's telling his stories. They're all super enthusiastic. The language is really flowery. It all sounds largely made up on the spot. Every single part of it seems like it's been exaggerated. Again, really different to the kind of stuff that I normally read, but really lovable at the same time. So in this particular instance, this very first in the series is about an old evil pope coming back from the dead as some scary tramp that comes into town and gradually takes over everybody's minds and starts to make everybody their slaves and such. Across the whole series, we cover things, like I said, alien invasion, end of the world, all that kind of thing. And the reason I'm mentioning this book, I think, and you can see from the state of this, how long I've had this, much like music for me, an old book brings back what it was like at the time. I first read this when I would say I was just first starting college. A whole new world of stuff opened up for me. I was suddenly hanging around with a lot more adults who had a really much wider worldview than myself. I just started driving. All kinds of different things were happening at the time. And I've come back to this book many times over the years. And just like when you hear an old song in your head, or you suddenly catch a smell of something that brings back memories, all of the memories I get from this, every single time, have always been super fond ones. So I've carried this book with me for, I say this copy, probably over 30 years. Other books I've had altogether. Is it a good book? Do you know, I've absolutely no idea. It could be terrible. But it holds a place in my heart because of the time that I read it and how much I enjoyed it at the time. And as a series, are they good books? Again, I don't know. But I'll say this. Across all of these books, there's never been a single one I've read or reread which at some time doesn't say to me or doesn't remind me just how absurd the world is and how silly everything is, and even at the scary parts of the books or the dangerous parts of the books, just how much joy there can be found in things just being ridiculous. So for me, I've chosen this book. Again, very different to what I'd normally read, but I would read it again, and I'd read it again and again and again. And what I say to anyone, pick up any kind of book, whether recommendation or otherwise, if you don't like reading, you're just reading the wrong book. Grab a different one, try another one. At some point, you'll fall in love with something like this. Good luck. If anyone has any questions about this or the author, give me a shout.